And welcome to the second tutorial by the photography enthusiast. My name is Daniel Lee, otherwise photos by DLEE on most social media. So today we're going to do an editing video from start to finish. This photo is one I took last weekend as I was walking home. I wanted to do a photo that wasn't sort of really great straight out of camera, that needed some work and to make it look like what I sort of seen in my eye on the night. So with this, as you can see, I sort of exposed it more for the highlights than I did for the actual shadow areas. So what we're going to do is, just as a bit of a disclaimer, I have edited this photo in full before, as you can see from this snapshot I did. Unfortunately, I recorded this whole tutorial, but I don't know what I did. I messed up the audio, didn't have a backup of it. So here we are to do the tutorial again. So usually when I first start editing, what I'll do is I'll do the profile corrections. So I shot it with my Canon 16-35. That's all that. And as you can see, even though I was using the spirit level in camera, it didn't seem to get it like actually straight. So what we'll do is we'll correct this. I'm going to cheat here because I sort of already know. It was 0.9. So I remember I did this wrong in the other tutorial. What I'll do is just quickly, if say for example, you want to use this as your guide to making it completely straight. So we've already made sure the profile corrections are on to make sure, say, the lines are completely straight and there's no distortion playing a part in it. But this is a bit dark, so it'll be hard to see. What you could do is just simply brighten this up. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about the rest of that. If it's blown, because it's just temporary. And then there you could just sort of, now that see the lines are bright, you could adjust it. What I wanted it at was 0.9. As I mentioned, I'm doing a bit of a cheat because I already know that. So there, that's much, much better. So if we double tap on anything like that, it'll put the exposure back to normal. So what I like to do with these Sony files is I'll pull it up to where I want it, or around where I want it. So around there about, and then just pull the highlights back down, and that puts it sort of where you want it to be. Now, I usually adjust the blacks first and sort of work my way up, then down like that. It's just, everyone has their own methods and own workflow for it. Mine may not make any sense, but it's how I manage to edit my photos, and I get it done that way. So I don't see any reason to change it for now. So as you can see, I pulled up the shadows a tiny bit, whites a tiny bit, just because I don't want those highlights to be too bright. I pulled that back down here. So for basic adjustments, I'm pretty happy with that. I usually do bump up the clarity just to around 10 to 15. And although there's no dehazing, what this does is it pretty much just adds contrast. So, which I know I can do up here, but I like the way it looks from dehaze. So there I just pretty much usually put it at 5. Next, I play around with the tone curves. So with the shadows, there's no like set way whether I often would, reduce it or increase it. I just sort of look how it looks on each particular image. That's another reason why I sort of don't use presets, because I do something very different with every single image. So because of that, there's no set one thing that works. So I'm increasing both the darks and the shadows there. For the lights, you wanted to put it up a little bit, but not too much, because otherwise you're going to blow these highlights pretty easy. And this, see, as you can tell, I hope you can be able to see the difference from that. I'm just going to put that down a tiny bit. So that's all I would pretty much do in Lightroom. I know a lot of people would use split toning, HSL, which I prefer to do all that Photoshop. Even with my sharpening, I do it in Photoshop. So pretty much that's what you could do. So when you want to open it in Photoshop, there are a few things you can do. So I'm just going to have to overwrite this because, as I mentioned, I had edited it before. You can go edit in and open the Smart Jet in Photoshop, or edit in the Photoshop CC 2019. That will create it into a TIFF file. Whereas with the way I do everything, I import it as a, DNG. So all I do is simply there. And as you can see, got all the DNG files here, which it should open any second now. There we go. And then I've already made those adjustments, so I can open the image now. There we go. So first thing I would usually do would be the color work. So I will create a color balance layer. There's a few ways you can do that. So what I'll do is I'll just delete that again, just so you can sort of see another way. So you could either use the adjustments layers panel here, but say I just wanted to eventually have the color balance only affect the sky. So say I want to adjust the color of the sky using color balance. It would be easier creating a new layer and then going edit, image adjustments and color balance, because that way afterwards I could add a layer mask to it very easily and then just paint in the areas I want that color. But I'm doing it to the whole image in this particular edit. So once again, click on the color balance. I like to start with the shadows first. So what I'll do is just have a look here. Usually I go towards the cyan side of things. So to me, that looks really light. See, with shadows, you want to look around these sort of areas, the darker area, to see exactly what it's doing. It's sometimes easier going to the extremes and then just sort of dialing it back in. And then the blues, I definitely want on the blue side of things. There we go. And then to the highlights. So once again, going a bit more on the cyan side. I don't usually touch magenta and green in the highlights. It's just a top two and bottom two. There we go. I'm happy with that one. The midtones. This is just a final bit. So yeah, going a bit more on the magenta, cyan side again. This I'm going to put a tiny bit on blue. So what I usually do then is adjustments and into the photo filter. So I often use either deep blue or sepia. So if we look at that, deep blue and then that sepia. For this particular one, I will go with sepia and I generally dial them back down to around 15. So that's all that done. So what I would do is create that. So if you want to have a look at how it looked before, that's that. As you can see, is a bit more of a sort of orangey magenta tone to it, but it's after that corrects it a bit more. It's a bit more like what I've seen to my eye. Next, I'm going to add, believe it or not, a little bit more contrast. So what I'm adding is this one here, the curves. So what we'll do is I always add a bit of linear contrast. It's a bit too much, I'd say, but what I like to do is just go back to 0, move it back up to where I want it. So around 70, I'd say. What I like. And then next, we are going to going to add a lighten. So we go Command J to create another layer, and then Control L for levels. And I want to go lighter. So the reason why I did it this way is because I plan to do it as a layer mask. So this is going a bit too bright for my liking, and here I'm worried about it blowing out as well. So I hold down Alt and click on the layer mask. There we go. See, as you see, that puts it back to there. So then I could just paint in the areas that I do want to be brighter. Believe it or not, I don't want the road to be brighter. I like having it dark, so it sort of adds more to this. And then from here, I can paint in there, paint in there, paint in there. So turning into a little song now. I'll do something I didn't do on the last image, but I will do on this one. So here we go. So that's that painted there. That's pretty much all I would paint in here. See, I'm not touching any of this area. So if we look at it from before, like that, sometimes going like this as well, you can see if you've missed anywhere in particular that you wanted to brighten up and were meant to, but you forgot. So that's all that done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to merge all of visible, turn it all into one. One thing that I do find a bit annoying is this. This is a very simple fix. So what you could do is you select that. Looks like we're going to do lasso, make it a bit easier just to draw it. So there, down to there. Actually, this is why it's good doing it sort of live edit videos. So you can see the mistakes I make and see that it's not all perfect from the start or anything. So we're going to go Control J to create a new layer. Then we're going to draw this. I'm going to go Edit, Fill, Content Aware. There we go. For something as simple as that, it's easier just doing Content Aware. If you wanted to do it and then you can go Control D, but I'll select there. Something as simple as this, it's easier to do it that way. But say like it was a lot more intricate and a lot harder to do, then you could look at using your clone stamp tool to sort of mask it out. So that is that. If you look, that's less distracting now, and that looks a lot better in my opinion. So that is that done. So the only thing I would say is maybe make it a tiny bit brighter again. I prefer to like make my images really dark and contrasty and sort of reduce it if need be. So once again, OK, and Alt, and click on the layer mask, paint it in. For those who you use any kind of mouse, you can hold Alt and right click and then drag left or right to increase your brush size. I'll do a post probably soon on all sort of recommended photography related things you should buy. One of them, for me anyway, is a mouse that lets you control the DPI. So if you can get a mouse that DPI is like the sensitivity. So if you can have it like really low sensitivity, so I'll put it on the lowest sensitivity now. As you see, I'm moving it left to right, but it barely moves. Now if I put it on the highest sensitivity, as you can see, the same movement will go like crazy. This helps. So if you're just doing normal general edits, you don't need it like super, super sensitive. But then if you're doing especially, say editing skin after doing a frequency separation, then it can help to have that real good precision. So that's pretty much that. See, that's all done there. And then merge visible. So I like that pretty much. I'm happy with how this image looks. It looks like what I've seen in my eyes, like when I walk past. So what I would do now is I would do my sharpening. I use the high pass filter. Because this is a tutorial, I won't use this. Pretty much this does show you what the steps are. So you want to create what I'll do first, I'll just show you. So we zoom into 100%. Then you want to go Control J to create a new layer. And then Control Alt S. No, that's Control Shift S. To be honest, I haven't done it manually for so long. Command Shift U. So Control Shift U is to invert the colors to make it black and white, a bit easier to see. As I said, I haven't actually done this manually in so long. I think I've actually forgot how to do it. But yeah, you just want to desaturate, then you go Filter, Other, High Pass. And from there, you just want to look and see what is the right sort of level. You don't want to overdo it, but even if you do overdo it, you can just reduce the opacity later on for that layer. So I don't go too over the top. I probably do it at 0.7 to 0.8. There we go. So what you want to do is you want to change the blend mode. So if you look, so overlay, the one for you can use this overlay, soft light, then hard light. As you can see, hard light somewhat brings in the most detail back, but it does increase the noise as well. So if you look, especially like in this window, you can see the difference. For this case, would be using overlay. So if we hide the layer, then increase it. As you can see, I'm not actually sharpening it that much. Just brings that tiny little bit of clarity and detail back in. That's pretty much that. If you only want, say, especially for like a portrait, or you have a background that's just pure bokeh or something like that, you can add in a layer mask, so Alt and click on that and just paint the areas you want sharper. Whereas obviously I'm not don't need that. I'm happy to have this whole thing corner to corner as sharp as possible. So that will be that. Measure that down, and then you just save it. Control-Shift-S for save. So which would save it wherever you want in JPEG. I also have Action set up, so it automatically exports them to. So I have one at 2048 on the long end for my iPhone. That's what I use to process social media and that. And web large, like web landscape, is for landscape oriented images, but ones such as this. And web vertical for vertical oriented images. Those are both at 1600 on the long end because I find that's mostly best optimized for my websites. But otherwise, that concludes this tutorial. I hope that you, whoever watches this, find some benefit from this, seeing a bit of a different way to edit some images from start to finish. If we have a quick look at it, how it turned out. So even coming into Photoshop, this is what it was like when it first came into Photoshop, and this is what it was like at the end. So I'd say it's a pretty decent change. It wasn't that bad straight out of camera, but I definitely prefer the final image much better. There will be another podcast releasing hopefully soon. I just got over being sick, so have been a bit hard to record. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you do enjoy it, make sure to subscribe and check out thephotographyenthusiast.com for all my tutorials and guides and podcasts. I'll leave a link in the description. Otherwise, thank you very much. Bye.